Good morning, grade 9. Today we are going to start lesson 4, fungi. Fungi are eukaryotes, like protists, eukaryotes, but when we spoke about bacteria, we mentioned bacteria are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes mean lack nucleus, but eukaryotes means the microorganism with nucleus, the genetic material involved in a nucleus. Fungi are eukaryotes that have cell walls, are heterotrophs, so it depends on other organisms. This is what I mean by heterotrophs, that feed by absorbing their food and use spores to reproduce. Spores to reproduce, classified by how they reproduce and produce spores. Fungi range in size from tiny unicellular yeasts to large multicellular fungi. So we have two types, unicellular fungi like yeast and the multicellular fungi like mushroom, like penicillium and the other types. Okay, number 1, cell structure of the fungi. Fungi surrounded by cell walls to keep the cell structure, except for simplest fungi like yeast. We mentioned yeast unicellular, so no cell wall surrounds the cell of the yeast. Yes, the yeast is unicellular type of fungi. The cells of most fungi are arranged in structure called the hypha. So when we speak about hypha, I mean multicellular fungus. Yes, hypha related to the multicellular fungi. Okay, hypha are branching threads like tubes. Look at these tubes. These hypha arranged themselves and tangled in shape, or crossed in shape, and the anchor in the part or in the environment the fungi want to absorb food from it. These threads like tubes make the bodies of multicellular fungi, and these threads full of or filled with cytoplasm and nuclei. What fungus look like depend on how hypha arranged itself. Okay, in fuzzy looking molds, fuzzy means soft layer appear on the surface of the environment fungi stayed on it, like a loaf of bread, like tomato, like orange, any type of food, or dead animals also. We can find a fungi on dead bodies of animal or plants. In fuzzy looking molds, the thread-like hypha are loosely tangled. Number 2, obtaining food. How fungi obtain food? By absorbing food through hypha, where digestive chemical ooze or leaves from the chemicals leaves from the hypha into the food and then break down the food into small substances that can be absorbed by the hypha. Yes, so the hypha with chemical substances ooze to the surface of the food and help it to break down the sugar or whatever the material in the food, and it can absorb food easily by the hypha. Some fungi feed on dead organisms, and the other are parasites that break down the chemicals in organisms. What about reproduction in the fungi? We have 2 ways fungi reproduce, both asexually and sexually. Asexually means one parent, sexually means 2 parents, usually reproduced by making spores. As I told you, it reproduces by making spores, and these spores grow to make fungi. It produces millions of spores. Fungi produce spores in reproductive structure called fruiting body. So where spores in the body of the fungi, in the fruiting body, cap of the fungi. Yes, this fruiting body filled with millions of spores. Look at the spores, tiny cells that when find a suitable area or suitable environment, it germinates to new fungi. The first way fungi reproduce asexual reproduction, when there is suitable moisture and food fungi make spores asexually. The spores grow into fungi that are genetically identical to the parent, as we mentioned in bacteria, asexual way by binary fission. The new bacteria with the same structure or identical to the parent because they come from one parent only. Budding is a way of asexual reproduction, but this way no spores, because the body of unicellular yeast can emerge bud only without any spore, emerge bud. This bud carries some of genetic materials and cytoplasm, and the bud separates itself and also again can grow another bud, and so on until a lot of fungi, fungi formed. Yes? So is a way of asexual. Budding is a way of asexual reproduction where no spores are produced. Unicellular yeast cells are produced by budding. Small yeast cell grows from the body of a parent like this. But in case of sexual, this is related to multicellular. Multicellular fungi can reproduce by the way of sexual. It involves two parents, and the new generation or the new fungi is not identical to the parents, yes, with different genetic material. Most fungi reproduce sexually, especially when growing conditions become unfavorable. The hypha of two fungi grow together. Hypha of two fungi from two parents like this, two genetic materials, yes, grow together, two fungi, yes, one from this one genetic materials, the spores that carries genetic material from one, and the spores from genetic material of the other can grow together, and the genetic material exchanged. The genetic material exchanged between the two fungi. Look at the hypha. This is hypha, and this part called rhizoids that anchor itself in the surface of the food or the dead bodies. Yes, bread molds are famous one that use the way of sexual reproduction. Bread mold, two hypha in the bread mold have joined together to undergo sexual reproduction. Yes, we move to the part of the role of fungi in nature. The role of fungi in nature. Fungi affect humans and other organisms in many ways. Number one, as I told you, fungi may act as a decomposers, like bacteria. Yes, decomposers. And recyclers. What I mean by recyclers mean return important nutrients to the soil after decaying it. Return important nutrients to the soil after decaying it. Or provide foods for people, like yeast that making food rise and make food sponge. Yes, so or other types like mushrooms that edible as a food in salad, in pizza, and so on. And the other type of fungi used in forming cheese, blue cheese. Yes, like bacteria that used in making cheese also. Provide foods for people. Also, fungi may help fight or cause disease. Some antibiotics are produced from some types of fungi, and some fungi live in beneficial relationship with other organisms. Number one, we speak about environmental recycling. We speak about fungi are decomposers like bacteria that break down chemicals in dead organisms, yes, dead plants and animals. This process return important nutrients to the soil. So decomposers, very important fungi that return nutrients to the soil, and recyclers also act as a recycler. It's the same meaning, decomposers and recyclers. Without fungi and bacteria, Earth would be buried under dead plants and animals' bodies that accumulated on Earth's surface. Number 2, food and fungi. As I told you, yeast fungus has important role in production some types of food like making bread, sponge. Yeast cells use sugar. This is the food for yeast. Use sugar in the dough and produce carbon dioxide gas. This gas make the bread sponge by the bubbles of the carbon dioxide gas, which cause the dough to rise. Number 2, also other way for making, for using yeast fungus, making wine from grapes. Also the fungus absorb the sugar and feed on the sugar of grapes and produce carbon dioxide that produce alcohol. This is the main source for making wine. Yes, so making wine from grapes to produce alcohol. This is from the other function of yeast fungus. Number 3, blue cheese, growth of molds inside the cheese. This is make a blue cheese. Number 4, mushrooms, type of multicellular fungi. Yes. Number 3, disease fighting fungi. How fungi act as a fighter? Many antibiotics have been isolated from both fungi and bacteria. From fungi, Alexander Fleming investigate his experiments about growing fungi in a dish of food. He found that no bacteria can approach the dish in presence of fungi molds. Yes, no bacteria can approach the dish of fungi mold. So antibiotic penicillin is extracted from the penicillium mold. Penicillium mold can affect the bacteria and kill it. So by this way, Alexander Fleming can produce his antibiotic penicillin, which comes out from mold penicillium. So disease fighting fungi depend on the antibiotic penicillin that comes or produced from some types of mold called the penicillium. This is multicellular type of fungi. This is multicellular. Number 4, disease causing fungi. Another way the fungi can cause disease, because fungi act as a parasite that cause serious disease in plants. So we can make fungicide, the insecticide. Fungicide is a substance that kills the fungi and may be used in crop fields where plants are growing. Like insecticides, I can find other products called fungicide. This substance kill the harmful fungi. Last one, some fungi cause diseases in humans, like athlete's foot that infected by some types of fungi make itchy irritation in the damp places between toes. Look at the damp places. This one sometimes filled with fungus, some types of fungi that causes this disease. These fungi produce spores which spread easily from person to person and cause itchy irritation. Yes, both diseases can be treated with antifungal medications. Yes, and the other fungi can produce worms, can also make irritation in the skin. Okay, diseases can be treated with antifungal medication. Okay, fungus can cause these diseases, produces spores which spread easily from person to person. Okay, So we did the part of fungi, and we spoke about the meaning, cell structure, obtaining food, and the ways they reproduce, and the role of fungi in nature. Thank you, all of you.